Hello, this is Mike Schneider. Back in 2003, I started a fan club for the Mike Schneider Band and called it the Polka Visionary Society. Each year, I send out an MP3 polka podcast that includes material you can't get anywhere else, like live segments from the Mike Schneider Band, remixes of previous recordings, previews of upcoming releases, and perhaps my favorite segment, the Polka Visionary Personality of the Year. Plus, you'll receive 2 full-color PDF newsletters in late spring and early winter. With the mandate to stay indoors, I figured this would be a good time to share some of my older Polka Visionary interview segments. On this Throwback Thursday, we revisit the year 2008 and Canada's polka king, Walter Ostanek. For more information and to join the Polka Visionary Society, please visit MikeSchneiderband.com and click on the fan club link at the top of the page. Happy Throwback Thursday, and thanks for listening.
It's time for the introduction of this year's Polka Visionary Personality of the Year. Now, here's your host, Mike Schneider, with a very special guest.
Thank you, Jeremy. This year's Polka Visionary Personality of the Year truly requires no introduction. His career in polka music has spanned more than 5 decades, earning him a position among polka royalty. Our personality has a gold record and more than 20 Grammy nominations to his name and has won the coveted award 3 times. He's a favorite at polka events throughout the United States, but calls another country home. My fellow Polka Visionaries, it is my privilege to present this year's Polka Visionary Personality of the Year, Mr. Walter Ostanek. And as we begin each annual interview, Walter, how did you get your start in polka music?
Well, getting my start in polka music way back, like I said, I was in a country band, and I played polkas and country. And then I had the privilege of playing with a very popular group in our area. They were on radio 3 times a week, Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And I knew he was coming to a wedding that I was playing with a group that I was with. And I was always a Frankie Yankovic fan from day one. And the thing is that I had the polkas down fairly good, you know. And he heard me playing because I knew the accordion player that was there at the time with him, and he was planning on retiring. So when the time came for me to play polkas, I got up and I rattled off 3-4 polkas, and it wasn't like 5 minutes later he came over and said, young fella, what is your name? So, make the story short, he says, I like the way you play polkas. He said, would you be interested in joining our group occasionally if I need you and fill in? And I said, by all means, because I was waiting for him to say that. And a little later on, he called me up to do a few jobs, and then like 6 months later after that, I played full-time with him.
So what happened next, Walter?
I left that band, and I went with the guys who were in the band. There was kind of conflict within the band. So I went with the singer, the 2 brothers, and we started a group called the McMullen Brother Melody Boys. And I stayed with them for a few years, and then and I left, and that's when I started my band, January 26, 1957. And I actually had a job before I had a band. And I walked into the fellow's place that did the hiring. It was a German hall. And Mr. John Rapp was his name. And he loved the accordion and polka music. And I walked in his house, I had my accordion with me, and he says, look, would you play a couple tunes? So I rattled off a couple of tunes. He says, calls up 3 or 4 of his friends that were on the committee. He says, hey, fellas, come on over here. I got somebody over here. I want you to hear him. So they came over, and they had a little bit of wine, and I played a few more tunes for them, and they gave me the job. And that was the beginning at the German Village in Niagara Falls on Saturday, January 26th. And then I got married on February 22nd, 1957. We got married on Friday so that I could go to Cleveland for my honeymoon for a couple days. Well, it so happens the accordion player, who was also my accordion teacher, wound up with pneumonia, so he couldn't play. So I had to come back, got married on Friday, came back, played the job on Saturday, and then we took off to Cleveland for Sunday and Monday and came back and started work again on Tuesday. So I went over to Eddie Habit's place, and he took us to a local tavern and played for us. And I loved it. And at that time, well, polka music was very much a part of what I was doing, and the people loved it. And little by little, I wound up getting a television show, and it was just one thing after another. And here I am, still at what I'm doing. And talking about television, May 1st, I'm flying out to Western Canada. We have a TV show there called Polka, and we're doing 13 more television shows. And our buddy from Cleveland, Ron Sluga, the banjo player, he's going with me as well. And he was on the original 13.
You obviously have a lot of friends in polka music, Walter. Who were some of your musical influences?
Well, the thing is that naturally Frankie Yankovic was there with the 78s, and the first 78 that I purchased was Frankie Yankovic's, which was the Blue Skirt Waltz, and if I recall, Charlie Was a Boxer. And then I started saving. I used to listen to radio because we lived near Niagara Falls, and I used to be able to get the high-powered station in Cleveland. And Ernie Benedict was on every day with his show with his range riders, and he featured a polka on every show. And then in 1950, I started going to Cleveland, and I have to say that like Frankie Yankovic is my idol, is, still will be, and I'll die with Frankie, my idol. But I also enjoyed very much Eddie Habit, who I became friends with, Johnny Vadnal, Johnny Pecan, Kenny Bass, and all the guys. And I not only introduced myself to them, I became friends with them, all of them. It wasn't a question of just knowing them. The question was being friends with them. Just exactly what you and I are doing today. I was doing this, like 1950.
Now, one thing I've always been curious about, Walter, you obviously have a decent singing voice yourself. How did Murray McFadgen get involved in your band?
Well, you know what it is. I'm quite fussy when I record. There's a lot of things I can do, but the thing is that Murray McFadgen, it's all started, my singer got sick, my regular singer. So I was doing this Oktoberfest at a hotel a couple hundred miles away from where we live. And they were Slovenians, and I've known them for a long time, so they hired us. So here I went there I was going to go with a 3-piece band for that because it's just a hotel and they wanted to have an Oktoberfest. The idea was that John Libra, who was the singer at the time, he was going to do the modern stuff, and we were going to do the Umpapa. I had a Quartervox, and my drummer and I were going to do the Oompa, and we'd have 4 hours of music, continuous music. Well, so happened he got sick. Well, Murray McFadgen just came off the road as a single, making a living at doing singing and that. And a friend of mine who's a booking agent called me up. He says, Walter, I have a guy that just came off the road. If you're interested, maybe he'll help you. So I got in touch with Murray McFadgen, and he said, sure. So we went up there, and that's what is funny about it is that Murray did that hotel, played in that hotel. So the first thing we came into the hotel, they welcomed us with open arms. They said, well, Walter, I would just want to let you know that you boys are welcome to the bar the entire weekend. Anything you want to eat, drink, or eat, whatever, it's on the house. And I would just want to let you know that our breakfast is at 9 o'clock, and our lunch is at 1 o'clock, and our supper is at 6 o'clock. You are welcome to eat with the family. So then they give us the rooms upstairs. It wasn't like a 4-star hotel, but still they gave us the best rooms they had. And Murray says, I played this hotel before. I didn't get no drinks. I didn't get no food. And they put me in that back room over there where the window is broken. And he says, something's wrong with this picture. And that was the beginning with Murray McFadgen. And then we started recording. And again, he has such a good ear, with harmonies and all that. And so we just continued on. And I had my 50th anniversary party last Saturday. And he was there singing with the boys. And he's on the road a lot, so he's very, very busy. And naturally, when he comes home, to keep being married, he has to stay home. And he and his wife, they golf. They do golfing a little bit. And he just hangs around the house, so he doesn't do any more. Unless it's something really important, he'll be out there with me. But otherwise, he still records with me. But it's even tough with that. He says, we'll always do it till we pack it in. In other words, he'll be there for me, and I appreciate that. So lately I've been using Ronnie Sluga too, and he's been doing a good job.
He has been doing a good job, Walter, and contributing to the top-notch vocals that are such a trademark of your recordings.
Well, the thing is that over 50 years, I've learned to, when I hire a new guy, he has to be as good as the guy that I use on records, or better. And I level with the person when I hire them. So there is no behind-the-scene things that are happening. They know exactly what's happening up front, so they can't get mad at me. Days gone by was a different thing. I did the television show with my regular guys, the recordings with my regular guys, and so on. But later on, as fellas quit me, I probably have only fired a couple of guys, and I've had many, many musicians working with me. We're still friends with all of them, but I level with them. I'm honest with them. I'm right up front with all my musicians.
So what's it like putting a CD together today, Walter?
Right now I have it very unique because I go to Cleveland and record. And before I used to have to bring these guys to Niagara Falls. I used to record at Rainbow Recording. And I'd have to bring them down. I have to wine and dine them. I have to get them a motel room, pay them for gas, and so on. Where now it's unique. I go to Cleveland and Bobby Kravis records. He has a nice studio. The musicians are there. Ronnie Slug, I call him up and bingo, he's there, and this is like my regular guy that I had before, Kenny Senko. Well, he retired. So at one time I had Al Markic. He's retired. So it's to where, and I used Dwight Gobley also, who is from the Youngstown area. He passed away. So Ronnie does all my, not necessarily my regular guitar player plays guitar on it, but Ronnie does the banjo work.
Well, Walter, what do you say we take a short break from the interview and play a song that we played together on stage at Teresa Lodge back in April of 2006, if memory serves correctly. This is one that you and the late Gaylord Klanick recorded together. One called Sail Ox Polka here on the Mike Schneider Band Year in Review. More with Walter Ostanek coming up after this. Polka King Walter Ostanek performing live at Teresa Lodge in April of 2006, along with the Mike Schneider Band. And Walter, obviously the quality of your recording speaks for itself and has led to a great deal of success for you. How did you earn the title of Canada's Polka King?
When I received, my first album was called Gay Continental Dance Party. So that was my first album, but it was a $1.98 album, and Arc Records at that time, they had what they were doing, which even probably today is a good idea. They had racks of albums, and they'd go into the grocery stores and to gas stations and to hardware stores, and they'd have a little display, and they put these albums in on consignment. And once a month, the salesman would come back, take inventory of what they sold, he'd get paid for that, and he'd replace it with new product. And over like the first couple of years, I wound up getting a gold record, which in Canada, gold is 50,000 albums. And so Frankie Yankovic presented it to me on television. And he said, Walter, I know you didn't win a contest, but if you don't take the name Canada's Polka King, somebody else will, and then it'll be too late. If I was you, with you getting a gold record in Canada for a polka album, I would say that nobody's going to argue with you. And that's where the beginning started, and that's from that day on I started calling myself Canada's Polka King. But I got to be honest, like there was only, I say this even like Jimmy Sturr, it's self-proclaimed Polka King. Frankie Yankovic was the only one that actually won the title. He won it right here in Milwaukee. He legit won the title, and he kept it that way. I did not. It's a self-proclaimed. And now, with my track record over 50 years in Canada, maybe I'm bragging or whatever, but there's nobody not even close to what I have done, because I've done all the major television shows, the Johnny Carson show, the Phil Donahue show with Lawrence Welk, the Lawrence Welk show, we were just talking about the Grand Ole Opry, and on, and the Jay Leno show with Howie Mandel, and regardless of how, but we were there. The thing is, and it was great. I have pictures, and that's why I also have a camera with me. Nobody better not dare me that I'm lying, because when I say something, I can back it up with everything.
It sounds like you really value your pictures as prized possessions, Walter.
It's wonderful to have that, because, I always say what you can get today, you can't get tomorrow. So you better take advantage of today. You mentioned about Bob Feller on our way here. I made sure, because it was my idea, to Tony Podkosik to get him, being he lives in Cleveland, to get him as a presenter. That was 5 years ago. Last year it happened. It became reality. When Tony told me, he was so happy to tell me, he says, Walter, your wish is coming true. I said, what do you mean? He says, we have Bob Feller as a presenter. And the thing is, I do that. That's, I'm like a collector. I'm a memorabilia collector. In polka music, I have autographs from everybody, like Kenny Bass, Eddie Habit. First time I was on television, I walked on a Sunday morning. I came to go on the TV show with Eddie Habit, not to be as a guest, just to be there with him, because I was a big fan of Eddie Habit. I rang his doorbell, and before I even said hello, he says, Walter, I just want to let you know you're going to be a guest on our television show today. And that's the way it started. And when Frankie Yankovic had a show in Buffalo, New York, he had, for 23 weeks, he had a 1-hour television show, the Frankie Yankovic Hour. I only missed the first show. They were recorded on Mondays. I was there for 22 out of 23 weeks. Help him set up his solo boxes and get his accordion out, go across the street and get a bottle of sparkling Burgundy. And, I was a gopher. I went for this and went for that. And I learned television. I was behind the scenes in the control rooms because I had free hand. I was there. Everybody knew me there, so that was the beginning. And then we were guests on his show, and just after that I wound up with my own show. So,
and that was among your early success, Walter. How did you go about earning 20 Grammy nominations and ultimately 3 Grammy Awards?
Well, when Frankie Yankovic won the first Grammy, he brought it with him. I held that Grammy many, many times. And matter of fact, he had it on my TV show and so on. And I always dreamt about winning a Grammy. And believe it or not, the following year, I wound up with a nomination, which was by special request polka album that we did, and I was just scratching my head. I couldn't believe it. And from there on, then I started promoting. From there on, that was the year that Eddie Blazonczyk and Jimmy Sturr tied. They both won a Grammy. That was the second year. So, but I still got nominated, and so did Hank Haller. Hank Haller got nominated that year. And then I started working at it. You know, people ask me, what's the secret? The secret is you got to really promote. And you got to promote with people that have votes. You have to become members. It doesn't happen just by accident. It happens with a lot of hard work and getting to know people and going out of your way, not only polka people, but also country western, rock and roll, bluegrass, classical, whatever it takes. And little by little, you have your little clout of votes, and they have theirs, and you pool them together, and that's the way you do it. The big companies, they do it their way for the big artists. But when you're a small, in a category like we are with polka music, there's nobody to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. Now, I've been nominated 20 times, won 3 times, and it's getting near the end for me, meaning that I've done it, I'm really enjoying it, and it's close to where I'm saying, now it's time for somebody else to take over, you know. So I'm very close to that era. Within the next couple of years, I personally am going to bow out. You know, it's like I say, as I'm getting older, I'm saying I've had a nice ride, I've enjoyed it, I'm still enjoying it, and now it's up to somebody else to pull in the reins, you know.
Now, going back to when you started your successful run at the Grammys, Walter, you were on the Lawrence Welk Show. How did that come about?
I wound up on a Lawrence Welk show, not when Lawrence Welk was alive, when Lawrence Welk was already passed away. I was with Myron Florin in Branson, Missouri, doing 2 or 3 years, I think it was 3 years, of Polka Festival. They had a Polka Festival at the Lawrence Welk Resort. And I got to be friends with Myron Florin. And one day he comes to me and he says, Walter, how would you like to be on the Lawrence Welk show? I says, I'd love it. He says, well, you're on tomorrow with me. Now, that was a portion that, if you watch the show, they throw in some new parts with the artists that are still alive, and they tell the folks what they're doing today, and they put that part into the old show. And so the artist is being the spokesman for that show for that week, and they tell the folks what they're doing, if they're still playing, and where they're living, and what they're doing for hobbies and so on. Well, this was Myron Florin's time to do it, and he had me on to play clarinet polka with him.
And from there, you and Myron did some recording together.
Like I say, when I got him, he was playing in our area. I got a hold of him and asked him if he would record a couple of tunes, and we decided on tunes, and I had the soundtracks already ready for him when he came. So he had to come in and do the soundtracks, and then we filled the rest of it in after, you know. But the point is, all these people I have become personal friends with. That I keep stressing that every time that I came to California for the Grammys, I would contact Myron Florin, and if he wasn't busy, which near the end there he wasn't that busy in February, and we'd get together for steak dinner and meet at the same restaurant. And I had a mother and son, friends of ours from California. They'd pick us up at the airport, and we'd all go and meet with Myron Florin, his wife most of the times, and his 1 daughter or 2 daughters that came along. And we had a wonderful time. I had a nice steak dinner, and I had all my memorabilia I wanted to have signed, you know, with me, and pictures. And so every time I got something different. But what I'm saying is I was a friend, same as Dick Contino. I've backed now, probably the last 5 years, we've done 4 shows where we're playing with Dick Contino. We're front act. We do a tribute to Frankie Yankovic, and I use all guys that played with Frankie Yankovic on the road, like Bobby Kravis on accordion, Ronnie Sluga on banjo, and myself on accordion. So we do a tribute to Frankie Yankovic, the first 3/4 of an hour, and then they take a short break, and then Dick Contino comes on. So we're doing that again in October. And I admired this guy playing the accordion. And so we wind up recording a couple tunes, with him. So, he's a great guy. And we had the opportunity one evening from Johnstown, Pennsylvania to Canton, Ohio, to drive him there. He had to catch the plane in the morning to fly to Orlando, Florida, to play the Italian festival. So we had like about 6 hours to talk about. Here, it was only my wife and I and Dick Contino in my car, and we were talking, trying to keep each other awake, during the night, and just talking about different things. And he told us his life story, how this and that and the other thing. And I mean, that's wonderful. That's to actually get a chance to be with a person that you admired all your life, and here you are, you have him in the car with nobody else around, and just talking about it. I throw questions at him from religion to life to whatever turns him on, to things that he doesn't like. You know what I'm saying? We just covered everything. Wonderful.
Now, Walter, you must have had many opportunities to meet with some of the polka greats and get to know them.
I was fortunate that I was there before you to get these guys. And I mean, I used to take them out, and I'm just a working guy, but I would take Yankovic and his wife, Kenny Bass and his wife, Eddie Habit and his wife, and there was a few others. Oh, Frankie Mullick. Okay, I'm still good friends. He's in his 90s. I'm still good friends with, for example, Louis Bichel here in town. I mean, I love the guy. He's an icon in polka music.
Over the course of your career, Walter, what are some of your favorite experiences?
Well, one was, you've seen it this morning, the Schmingy brothers, Eugene Levy. Okay, I became a big fan of John Candy's, but when I first seen him on television, it was called, I think, the Last Polka. They call themselves the Schmingy brothers. Well, they got the idea from our television show because they came from Second City, I believe it's called, in Toronto. When I met him at the Grammys a couple years ago, and I have cards with my picture on it, and I said, Mr. Levy, I'd like to have your autograph. So he gives me his autograph, and I couldn't have my camera with me until he said that was the year they stopped allowing you to bring a camera into the Grammys. Like now, I have a cell phone that has a camera. I learned, but yeah. But the thing is that I had my card, so he gave me his autograph on my card. And then I gave him my card, and he looks at it, and he says, "You're not the Walter Ostanek?" I says, "Yes, I am." He said, "I always wanted to meet you," and he wanted my autograph. He was telling all his family, because he just won a Grammy for a folk song. He was in a folk movie, kind of burned out folk singer. So it was a big thrill for me. But he was actually from Hamilton, Ontario, originally, and that's only like 30 miles away from where I live, St. Catharines. Yeah. So, and Weird Al Yankovic, when I met him, Gaylord Clanic gave me an album, and he has an album out. It was called, I think, Polka Party, Weird Al, and there was a picture of Frankie Yankovic, okay, on this album cover, and there was Frankie Yankovic and this little kid playing accordion. Well, this little kid happened to be Eddie Clanic. How that picture got in there, none of us know. Anyway, Weird Al Yankovic, I knew that. So anyway, Gaylord gave me the album to see if I could get it signed, because I knew he was nominated for Weird Al. Well, it so happened that he was there, and I was standing right behind him, waiting to get a drink. So I introduced myself to him, and I told him who I was, and I said, "You're in big trouble." He looks at me, he said, "What do you mean I'm in big trouble?" I says, "You have an album out called Polka Party." I says, "And you have a picture on there of Frankie Yankovic and this little kid." He says, "I always wondered about that." He says, "Because I don't know who that kid was." I says, "I happen to know who that kid is. I happen to have the album up in my hotel room. If you sign it, I can get you off the hook." He says, "Go get the album." So I went up, because at that time, the parties were right in the hotel at the Biltmore. So I went right up to the room, got it, brought it down, he signed it, and I gave it to Gaylord. That was a unique thing. He was quite serious. you're in trouble, And he said, well, what did I do, And then I said, well, if you sign that album cover, you're off the hook.
Well, I'll bet Weird Al was happy to hear that. What do you say we do one more song from the April 2006 session we had together, Walter, at Teresa Lodge? This is one that you wrote for your friend Julie, one called Julie's Polka, here on the Mike Schneider Band Year in Review. Walter Ostanek, Canada's Polka King, along with the Mike Schneider Band at Teresa Lodge in April of 2006. And we are chatting with Walter Ostanek, Canada's Polka King, and the 2008 Polka Visionary Personality of the Year. And Walter, my final question for you, as for all Polka Visionary Personalities of the Year, what do you see for the future of yourself and for the future of polka music?
Well, the future for myself is I'm not planning on quitting, but I realize I'm not stupid either, that it's getting the bewitching hour. Mind you, I see guys that even in this town, they're like 78 and 79, they're still going. I'm 72, so that kind of gives a little bit of a light. You have Art Van Dam, he's still going, and he's about 87. Okay, you have Dick Contino going, but the thing is, they're still going, and as long as I feel good, and the good Lord gives me good health, and I can still do a decent job, I'm going to stay there till I have no more jobs. As far as the young people are concerned coming up, they have to eat, drink, sleep polka music. And you have to have a good personality, you have to be polite with people, you have to be smiling, and you have to look like you're really enjoying what you're doing, regardless if you are or not, because you can't go 100% of the time enjoying everything and playing either. There's jobs that I can hardly wait for him to be over, but you can't let people know that. You got to be sincere. They paid to come and see you, and you have to have time if people want to talk to you, and so on. But it's going to take, I think, another guy like Dick Contino. I was there when he came up strong. He was a good-looking guy, a lot of charisma and personality, and people loved him, and women loved him. Now, the thing is, the day that an accordion player can go out there and make women love the accordion player, there'll be girls that'll want to play accordion, and there'll be guys that'll want to play an accordion, because this guy is a You know what I mean? Something special. And that's what it's going to take. And I predict that somewhere along the line, or maybe a movie with polka music in it, like, what is it, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? With Clooney in it. That brought up, it so happened that at the Grammys I was talking to somebody and I was mentioning about that movie, and at that particular Grammy, that movie won a lot of Grammys. Ralph Stanley, who is not really a young man, he's been around for years, like a Frankie Yankovic, like a Bill Monroe from bluegrass music, and his manager happened to hear us talking about Ralph Stanley, and he walked by and he stopped and he says, I just heard Ralph Stanley's name mentioned. And I says, we were just discussing him, that he's been around for a long time, and he said, well, I'm his manager. So he told me who he was and all that, and we discussed things. But he was probably getting probably $1,500, $2,000 a job, you know, because he was still fairly known on, you know. But when he won the Grammy and when that movie came out, he was getting like $8,000 a job. And he became a member on the Grand Ole Opry. It just brought the whole bluegrass scene up. People wanted, you know, there was years ago that used to be the hootenannies and that, and the bluegrass festivals. And now a lot of people that came to those festivals, they came there, they'd get drunk and have a good time, and, you know, if it rained, they would be slopping in the mud, and it was a big deal, you know. And then, but they were not really bluegrass fans. It was just a weekend to have a ball, the young people. And then there is the real bluegrass fans. Well, that's the same thing with polkas. One thing is Oktoberfest, when I play, we have 2,300 university students there. I'm the king. I'm Uncle Walter, okay? I sign autographs like, you know, I probably 300-400 autographs, 500 autographs a night. And I sign hats, their Oktoberfest hat, you know, Walter Ostanek, 2007, next year 2008, 2009. So the thing is that I can't believe that I built it up over 29 years, where before there was the older crowd that used to come there, and then they kind of got away from there. Well, our place is the place to be for Oktoberfest, but it's with the younger people. Now what we've done, we have taken for the first Sunday and the second Friday, we work with top Canadian rock and roll bands that are famous in Canada, and we worked with them. And Molson's Canadian, that have all their beer there for the whole festival everywhere, came to me and said, Walter, what do you think of this idea of having Rocktoberfest? You guys play a few tunes with the rock band? I said, well, I'll tell you, I think it's going to work, but it won't work the way you're saying. I said, but I'll tell you what will work is me going up there, teaching them in the afternoon when they have their sound check, teaching them the chords to In Heaven There's No Beer, Roll Out the Barrel, 3-4 tunes, and that they know where they're going. I have a charts made out for them, okay? And there hasn't been a rock and roll band that has turned me down. I go on the bus and tell them, you know, some of them know that I'm coming, some that don't, but everyone is for it. And, you know, the students go bananas. They go crazy for this, that I can make this rock and roll band play polkas. So you have to, you can't also have a straight path. Sometimes you have to go off the path. Sometimes you have to go whatever works. In this case, it wasn't something that was planned. It was just an idea, and we put it into motion. But I could have turned around and said, no way, I'm not going to do that. That's not my bag. But I did. I said, sure, why not? And that's the way I am. I'm willing to try anything. Yeah. You know, anything within reason that I don't make a fool out of myself. Yeah. So.
Well, Canada's Polka King, Walter Ostanek, it's been my pleasure to be with you here, and congratulations on being the 2008 Polka Visionary Personality of the Year. Thanks again for joining us.
Well, I thank you very much, Mike. You're a fine musician, and I wish you all the luck in the world. And like I said, the harder you work, the luckier you'll get.
And again, thank you for listening. If you like what you just heard, please consider joining the Polka Visionary Society for only $14.99 per year by going to MikeSchneiderBand.com and clicking on the fan club link at the top of the page. Or consider purchasing one of my CDs on the music page. This is Mike Schneider again, wishing you the best of health in the days ahead. I hope you'll join me again next week, Thursday, for another special throwback edition of the Polka Visionary Podcast.